Hey now Deadheads, we're back again with another Grateful Dead vinyl box set. It's going to be a very busy season for Grateful Dead vinyl releases this fall and into the winter. But today we've got the breakout from the In and Out of the Garden We Go box set, that CD box set from last year. This is 3/9/1981 in a gorgeous vinyl box set. But before we get to what's inside this vinyl box set, I want to talk about this release a little bit. I usually do this near the end of these videos, but I want to flip the script a little bit today because this release had me thinking. I posted earlier this week on those Steve Hoffman forums, kind of floating this hot take maybe. Turns out it wasn't that hot of a hot take. But a few folks, about a year and a half ago, back in 2022, when they released the In and Out of the Garden We Go box set, a few people weren't so happy that they were sourced from cassette tapes. Those 6 shows in that box set were sourced from cassette tapes. And naturally, because this is the breakout from the In and Out of the Garden We Go box set, this is sourced from cassette tapes. Folks were complaining. They said, I can take that with some releases, occasionally on a Dave's Picks, on a Dick's Picks. I know that they're not all going to be beautifully recorded gems. We can't only have Betty boards. But they were a little bit disappointed in the cassette sourcing, specifically of this release. A crucial detail for many, when they think of a vinyl box set, they think of audiophile quality. They only want a pristine, beautiful sounding box set, beautiful sounding recording when they invest in these fairly expensive vinyl box set from the Grateful Dead. Now, I was thinking about that. I listened to this album all the way through a couple times since I got it in the mail about a week or two ago. And I've got a kind of different take to offer up. Part of the warmth, part of the magic, part of the nostalgia even of listening to a cassette tape sourced vinyl box set. Now, when I grew up, and I'm sure many Deadheads my age or younger, I confess I never saw Jerry, but I listened to a lot of Jerry. I listened to a lot of Dead every weekend morning. Coming from the living room, I woke up, I walked downstairs, and there was a Dead show playing quite loud. Often on a cassette tape, sometimes a VHS tape. My dad realized he could squeeze a little bit more music, a little bit more showtime onto one of those video VHS cassette tapes. Sometimes on the reel-to-reel deck, we had some Grateful Dead playing. It was always there growing up, and it was always tapes. Now that sound of that, a little bit of tape hiss, a little bit of that character that you get from listening to the Grateful Dead on a cassette tape is a unique experience. It's a very different experience from listening to a pristine, live recording like something like Live Dead, Dead Set, Reckoning, Without a Net, all of those really beautifully iconic Grateful Dead releases that came out over the years. And a lot of those were recorded on 16 track. They recorded multiple nights so that they could cherry pick the best takes, the best versions, their favorite versions, and they even cleaned them up in the studio a little bit. Think about especially Europe 72 is famous for some overdubbing of some vocals, speeding things up just a hair to give it a little bit more pep on the recorded release, on the vinyl release. That's a very different listening experience from listening to that stack of cassettes that you sometimes see at used record stores, garage sales, in your favorite Deadhead's basement or garage. And this really emulates that type of experience. It's that warmth of listening to Grateful Dead on a tape. And tapes today, for the most part, suck. If they've been sitting in the flooding basement, the humid basement, the hot and cold garage over the years, they've degraded over time. And so you can't really recreate that mid-90s listening to the Grateful Dead on your mid-fi stereo Saturday morning, Sunday morning. You just can't really replicate that with the original tools, the original hardware that we had. But to me, this release, it feels so special because it does replicate that. It does kind of have that warmth. It has that character. It has that feeling of listening to a Grateful Dead tape. It has that nostalgia of that perfect day. You're putting a tape into the tape deck and just listening to it through, really enjoying that recording, whether it's a soundboard, whether it's an audience tape. It's that same sort of nostalgia of tapes. It's very funny to listen to a tape released, mixed and mastered for a CD release, and then pressed onto vinyl. But the clarity on this, the quality of this pressing really highlights and really shines through those tape characteristics that brought me a lot of feelings while listening to this. And so to me, this release feels particularly unique in that regard. It's not something that I would just write off and say, well, this isn't as good as this other thing, and so I'm going to go with something else and not this 3/9/81 release. To me, this is a very unique release, especially given the current slate of Grateful Dead vinyl releases that we've been seeing. Some of them are really good, some of them are only okay, but this one is unique and kind of stands on its own, in my mind, as being a love letter to listening to the Grateful Dead on tapes. On cassette tapes in particular. Of course, your reel-to-reel deck, your 7.5, 15-inch per second reel-to-reel, that's going to be a completely different experience. Also a beautiful, wonderful, great experience if you can afford it, if you've got the patience, if you've got the space for that. But this is the love letter to the compact cassette tape and listening to the Grateful Dead on those tapes. And so now that my rant is out of the way, let's take a look at what's inside this box set. You can see the beautiful, but maybe a little controversial art on the cover of this release. I remember when the CD box set, the very long CD box set, was announced and started shipping. Some people loved it, some people didn't love it so much. I like it because it's just very colorful. It's something a little bit different. Now when we open it up, you see I saved the hype sticker. Live at Madison Square Garden. This is a limited edition of 10,000 for this 5 LP box set, and it's pressed on 180 gram vinyl. Next, we look at the liner notes, and I've been complaining lately about the lack of liner notes in some of these releases. I really enjoy the photography that they included in this, as well as kind of a shortened version of the full suite of essays that were included in that big CD box set from about a year and a half ago. And then on the back of the liner notes, you've got, of course, the rest of the photograph that was on the front. Now, when we look at these inner sleeves, I know I've been complaining about these black poly-lined inner sleeves that we've been getting with most of the Grateful Dead Productions releases from this year. This release wasn't too bad. I didn't have a lot of fuzz, a lot of little scraps of paper littering the record. They shipped in pretty good condition. I don't know if they found a new supplier for this, but bravo if they did. And then here you have the rear of the box. It's got the full track listing. Some standouts on here for me, of course. Thought the Birdsong was killer. Ship of Fools into Estimated Profit. Really good stuff. Nice long Uncle John's Band. And then it ends with Good Lovin'. This is Bobby Good Lovin' and not Pigpen Good Lovin'. But I think this was an era where Bobby really kind of did it justice. He picked up the reins, and he did some really fantastic Good Lovin's back in the early 80s. Now, I suspect that this is a release that's probably not going to sell out anytime soon. If you remember the breakout from the Listen to the River box set, that St. Louis show that they released a couple years ago, I think that sat on shelves for a while. You could even get it on discount eventually. I suspect we'll see even more of that phenomenon with this release, just given the sheer volume of releases that the Grateful Dead is coming out with this season, as well as lower interest in 1981 Grateful Dead. But don't sleep on this one, especially if you have that nostalgia, those memories of listening to tapes way back in the day. I think a nice close listen, maybe with headphones on, close your eyes, and it really transported me, and I think this has the opportunity to transport you as well. But I'm curious what you think. Do you agree that this is a nice little trip down memory lane, gets you in the kind of warm and fuzzy feelings, or are you saying, I don't care about that crap, just give me the highest quality possible, give me the most pristine sounding recording possible, I don't want that tape noise at all. I'm curious what you think about that. If you could let me know down in the comments below. I think both sides could be possibly right. I think there's merits to both directions, but I'm just giving you one man's opinion today, but I want to see what sort of conversation this sparks down in the comments below. Now, there are a bunch of Grateful Dead releases coming up soon. I think I neglected to mention the reissue of Without a Net. We've got the new Jerry Garcia Heads and Tails. We've got Record Store Day. I think Built to Last, maybe, or I think Built to Last is getting another pressing soon. Didn't get a lot of fanfare or notoriety. I don't even think there's a colored version, but I know there's people talking about a new pressing of Built to Last. There's, of course, Oteil's record coming soon. All sorts of stuff coming down soon, as well as the announcement of Dave's Picks 2 on vinyl, which isn't coming out until February of next year. I don't know why they teased 2 Dave's Picks releases for 2023, but we got one earlier this year, and then we'll get early next year Dave's Picks 2, which will be an exciting one. I believe it's a 1974 show. So it'll be a nice Wall of Sound 50th anniversary coming out in February, early February of next year. So I'm looking forward to that as well. But again, there's so many releases coming up soon that I will certainly see you soon. If you want to be reminded of these videos, perhaps see them on your YouTube home screen, feel free to subscribe to the channel. And that's it for today. Thank you very much. Peace.